$15 billion. Incinerated. Not in a market crash, not in a regulatory scandal, in a delusion. In 2011, a machine named Watson stood on a television stage and destroyed the greatest human champions in Jeopardy history.
This is it. This is the last Jeopardy game.
What is your view?
Yes.
After the first clue of the game, which Brad won, I had just this horrible feeling at that moment that he was as good as everyone said he was, and he was just going to run the whole board on
Is violin.
Good.
Who is the church lady?
Yes. Watson.
What is narcolepsy?
You are right, and with that, you move to $36,681.
It was a masterpiece of public relations. The world watched and believed IBM had conquered artificial intelligence. IBM believed it too. Sharks and titans. The stories they never wanted you to see. But behind the glowing headlines, the truth was far more terrifying. Watson was not intelligent. It was a very expensive illusion, and the executives who bet the future of a century-old tech giant on that trick just watched it collapse in real time. The plan was arrogant. Take the Jeopardy engine, pivot it to healthcare, pivot it to finance, turn it into an oracle that would diagnose cancer and revolutionize enterprise. To make Watson seem omniscient, IBM went on a desperate buying spree. They did not just build software. They bought the data. They spent $2.6 billion on Truven Health Analytics. They spent $2 billion on the weather company. They shoveled $15 billion into the Watson ecosystem, desperately trying to create a moat of proprietary data. They arrogantly thought hoarding data was the ultimate product. They were fundamentally wrong. The first fatal cracks appeared inside the hospitals. IBM Watson for Oncology was supposed to be the crown jewel. Doctors were promised an artificial intelligence that could analyze medical records and recommend cutting-edge cancer treatments. What they actually got was a black box that frequently gave unreliable, sometimes entirely unsafe advice. Internal documents later revealed a devastating secret. Watson was not trained on real, messy patient data. It was trained on hypothetical, synthetic cases heavily manipulated by IBM engineers to make the outputs look flawless for marketing demonstrations. Oncologists quickly realized Watson was not a genius. It was nothing more than a highly polished, dangerous buzzword generator. It could not parse the chaotic, unstructured reality of human medicine. The oracle was an absolute, embarrassing fraud. By 2019, the internal panic was palpable. A new chief executive, Arvind Krishna, took the helm and conducted a brutal audit of the artificial intelligence division. He discovered that Watson was not one unified brain. It was a fragmented, disjointed patchwork of different algorithms held together by marketing glue. There was no underlying foundation model, just a collection of expensive, narrow tools that could not communicate with each other. Krishna had to publicly admit what the engineers already knew. The architecture was a complete dead end. He killed the Watson brand as a standalone product, realizing it was toxic. But the fatal flaw was not just the flawed technology. It was the archaic business model. IBM tried to sell Watson like legacy enterprise software from the 1990s. They sent in armies of highly paid consultants. They forced clients into multi-year, multi-million-dollar custom integration projects before a hospital could even test the system. They built a walled garden in an era rapidly being defined by open access and agile deployment. Then, in late 2022, the paradigm shattered completely. OpenAI released ChatGPT. It did not require a $10 million consulting contract. It required a credit card and an internet connection. It was general intelligence that could understand context, write code, and synthesize research instantly. Watson was built to answer rigid trivia. ChatGPT was built to understand the world. The contrast was absolutely devastating. IBM did not just lose the AI war. They were completely erased from the battlefield. In 2022, humiliated and bleeding cash, IBM quietly sold off the rotting corpse of Watson Health to a private equity firm for pennies on the dollar. $15 billion invested, sold for scraps. They tried to salvage their reputation by rebranding their surviving tools under a new platform called Watson X, but the market had already moved on. The magic was gone. IBM had spent a decade telling the world they were the undisputed leaders in artificial intelligence, only to be obliterated by a startup that proved the future of intelligence was cheap, accessible, and decentralized. The lesson is brutal. IBM did not fail because their engineers lacked talent. They failed because their leadership was trapped by a legacy monopolist mindset. They tried to cage intelligence behind a paywall of corporate consulting, but intelligence refuses to be monopolized, and the empires that try to fence it in always end up building their own tomb. $15 billion, a century of reputation, one televised magic trick. Watson did not lose the AI war. It never showed up to fight.